Welcome to Mocktails and Masterpieces with the Indianapolis Chamber Orchestra. Hello, and welcome to this special episode of Mocktails and Masterpieces. I'm Dana Stone, the Executive Director of the Indianapolis Chamber Orchestra, and I'm here with Tucker McGrew, our Operations and Education Coordinator. You do all kinds of things.
Absolutely.
So today we're going to be talking about we're doing the second segment From Score to Stage, which is our sub-series within Mocktails and Masterpieces, where we talk about the process behind the scenes of bringing a concert from the beginning of its thought inception to what you see as the finished product on stage. So this is our operations segment. And Tucker is the guy to let you know how that all works. We're excited to have him join us. He joined the ICO in June,
Yep.
Came to us from North Carolina. So maybe take a quick minute to introduce yourself and some of your background.
Yeah, for sure. I just moved here from North Carolina, where I was a middle school band and choir teacher and an elementary school general music teacher. Before that, I went to Western Carolina University for arts administration, where I was a piano player. And now I'm really excited to be up here in Indianapolis doing something that is new and really exciting and really fulfilling.
Wonderful. You also play clarinet, though.
I do play clarinet.
So we've got a multi-instrument musician here. So excited to have you join us. Let's talk a little bit about the structure of the rehearsal process with ICO. So we have 7 concerts, and some of them have more rehearsals, some of them have less. I think our audience may not realize how that all works. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the structure of a rehearsal.
Yeah, for sure. So rehearsals that have a guest artist or special equipment are definitely have more rehearsals because the orchestra is going to rehearse on their own before we add in a guest artist, or for example, the chorus that we'll perform with in December. So the orchestra is going to have to meet before that happens. Or for the movie, we have a rehearsal with the orchestra before we add in the screen. So they always have to get together before we add in the special unique thing about that performance, which requires a lot of communication with the venue, making sure that they're prepared to set up for us everything from music stands to electricity to making sure the ceiling shells are correct and everything. And so we have to piece together how we're going to set everything up ahead of time so that the rehearsals are successful, so that the concert is successful.
Great. So I think a lot of audience members remember being in high school band or high school orchestra, and they're rehearsing multiple times a week for multiple weeks before a presentation, a concert. Whereas the ICO really kind of comes together on a Thursday. They perform they do about 4 rehearsals, and then they perform on a Saturday night. So what you see is the culmination of really high quality musicians that have definitely prepared music on their own. But when we come together, we're only coming together for a few times before you see what is the concert ready performance. So let's talk just a minute about stage setup, because obviously with ICO, we do a lot of versatile programming. So we're doing everything from a film with a little bit larger orchestra this time, to a dance performance with DK, to a play, to the Messiah, so very Baroque music. So you kind of get in a wide spectrum of performance. How do you determine the stage setup, and how much does it change?
I think every concert this season is pretty unique in terms of its stage setup. So for example, the play you mentioned that we're doing in May, the actors need a certain amount of room to perform the play. So we have very precise measurements for the amount of space they need to tell their story. And that has to be exact because we have a piano player who is going to be a character in the play. So she has to be able to interact with the other actors, but she also has to be in the orchestra. So we're, measuring things pretty precisely to ensure that all of that happens cohesively. And then there's also a screen that is going to have information and like almost a set on it for part of the play. So the screen has to be in the right spot where the musicians can see the conductor, but the screen in relationship to the actors, in relationship to the piano, is all working so that it makes sense to the audience and doesn't seem strange in the way it presents itself.
So anything that surprised you when you started creating these orchestra setups?
Um, absolutely. So the majority of my background is in band. So adding the string section in was I learned a lot about the sight lines of the orchestra, the fact that the inside chair turn, they turn the page, they share a stand with someone else that was new to me. Um, and they also have to be able to see the stand in front of their stand to ensure that they're bowing their music in the same way as the row of whatever instrument they play in front of them. So they have more, the string players have more specific setup needs than me as a piano player or a clarinet player, where I just sit down and I do it. So that was something I learned for sure at the beginning of my time here.
Fantastic. So next thing I want to talk about is logistics, which is probably the most intricate and less consistent part of what you do.
Yes.
We could probably do an entire segment just on concert logistics, and probably one for every single concert that lasts several minutes. So let's talk some about some of the logistical needs for a concert. What are the challenges and how do you navigate those?
For sure. I think the best concert that we do to illustrate this would be the Parks concerts we just wrapped up, because there's so many moving pieces. So we have to coordinate how our musicians are going to arrive to a venue, which is outdoors. So we're communicating with an audio team and a lights team that's setting up an outdoor venue to make sure they're set up before we arrive. And within that, we have to make sure percussion can arrive and get there. They have to fit their equipment on whatever path or grass field is available to them. We have to make sure a harp can get there. We have to make sure an electronic keyboard can get there. So just having everyone arrive in and of itself takes some time to work out. After that, we're communicating with local organizations like a yoga studio that's bringing in demonstrators, a local elementary school choir, which is going to be about 25 8-year-olds that we have. Expressing their excitement and curiosity at all this equipment that they see. And while beautiful, might not be the most conducive to a calm rehearsal setup. We're including, the local Suzuki organization. So we have kids, who don't really know how to hold a cello, kind of walking around, and we have to make space for them. And we have to make sure everyone knows when to be on stage and when to not be on stage. And then, of course, tearing it all down at the end is pretty complicated. So within 2 hours, we have to get all these people to arrive at the right time in a way that their equipment's going to be safe, get on and off stage in the right order. They have to know their cues, even if they're 8 years old. And then we have to get everyone home at the end of it. So there's a lot of puzzle pieces for sure.
Absolutely. I think the parks are the biggest challenge because the park system doesn't own music stands, so we have to transport music stands. We do have a fun logistical story. When we showed up to Holiday Park on for the Friday performance, when they plugged in the sound system, there was no power.
Yeah.
So that was going to be an issue. The orchestra can certainly play without amplification, but electronic keyboard cannot.
Right.
A microphone cannot work without amplification. So luckily they figured all of that out. But those are just some of the small things that happen, and we never know. You never know what with a live performance what that thing will be, but it may be something. So let's talk some about percussion equipment. So that's sort of its own beast,
for sure,
because it changes from concert to concert. Talk some about how the percussion team, the actual instrumentalists, help coordinate to ensure that the equipment's needed and set up and all that, if you can.
Absolutely. So I will always share the stage plot with the percussionist before I even show it to the conductor, because I want to make sure that while it maybe fits in a certain space, that it makes sense for what they're trying to do. Because if you have a big 33-inch timpani, just because it fits in my, Microsoft template doesn't mean it can actually get to where I've put it on stage. So I run the stage plot by them first. And then once they confirm that it makes sense, I'll share it with Matthew, who of course will let us know if there's anything auditory we need to take into consideration. Depending on the venue, we have to make sure, everything can fit through the doorway, or is there a ramp if we're talking specifically about a marimba or timpani, because taking those things upstairs is difficult, and it can be dangerous. So we have to find a pathway. So those people are definitely showing up to rehearsal early, um, typically as early as I am normally, and they're loading in, if not a few hours before, the night before rehearsal, to make sure everything is brought in carefully and set up the right way.
Fantastic. So another logistical piece of the puzzle is guest artists. So of course, our movie does not have a guest artist. The artist is the movie.
Right.
But many times we do have a soloist that we're featuring, and oftentimes that person, more times than not, is an out-of-town guest.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of logistical concerns with getting them to the venue and ensuring that they're taken care of. Maybe you can talk a little bit about accommodations and writers and how it is working with agents, all that sort of
For sure.
fun stuff.
So when we begin the process of the idea of performing with a guest artist, we have to reach out to their representation, which is typically a manager or an agent. Um, and with that comes, we negotiate rates, and we negotiate
times, yeah.
Yeah, there's all kinds of details that have to get hashed out. And so once that's set, we have a plan that has to be facilitated. So we have to coordinate picking this person up from the airport. We have to get them to a hotel. And the hotel room process is even more complicated than you would think, with the amount of hotels that we book in a season. And then we have, like you mentioned, a rider, which is kind of what the artist needs to be successful the day of their rehearsal and their performance. So that's maybe like a type of microphone, or a certain warm-up regimen, or the food or the water they're going to have in the dressing room. Whatever their rehearsal or concert ritual is, that sets them up to have a great performance that night. We have to take their unique and highly personalized list and bring it to life. So for each artist, it can look very different in the types of things they ask for.
Absolutely. Let's talk about stage lighting, because I think people think, oh, we just turn the lights on and the orchestra plays. Well, as you know,
right.
Stage lighting is probably one of the more challenging things that we have to deal with. Many times, because we do change venues, and or the venue has changed since the last time we were there. Lights have been focused for something else. Things have been adjusted, and is now blinding somebody on the stage. I know we had some challenges earlier this summer with some lighting, like too much lighting, not enough lighting. Maybe you can talk a little bit about lighting and stand lights and all that fun stuff so people can see.
Yes. So when we're in a stage and we have all these lights coming from all these directions, it's without someone trained to run the lights, it can almost make it harder to see. So these musicians are seeing shadows instead of their music, or the music or the lights, excuse me, are so bright on the music they can't see the ink on the page, or the lights are making the conductor into a silhouette, which makes it harder for them to read his hands. So it's this intricate balance of making sure the lights are bright enough that everyone can see, regardless of what angle they are in that semicircle around Matthew. But they also can't be too bright, they're blinding someone else. Part of how we combat that is by having stand lights. So it's like a small, almost like a book light that you clip onto a music stand, so that when the lights are dimmed a little bit to accommodate other people, the musician has a light pointing right at their music. But it does take a good amount of slowly creeping things up and down to make sure that the light coming from all throughout the hall creates a visible environment.
Yeah, they can see. It's so important. They can't play what they can't see.
Right.
And I think it's exacerbated by the orchestra shell, because a lot of times the light grids that would typically be used like above the stage are covered by the shell top. And so there are limited options on how to make these adjustments with what's available because of the orchestra shell specifically. So another example is the DK concert, when they're bringing in their Marley and they're taking off the first 2/3 of the stage and bringing in dance booms, which are lights that kind of cross light the stage this way. to ensure that there's still enough light in the back, even with
Right.
stand lights. It's you can definitely see your music with stand lights, but you can't see Matthew with just a stand light. He's just a shadow.
Right.
And of course, you have to be able to see the conductor to be successful.
Pretty imperative.
So there's definitely a lot of intricacies when we do these shows that are multidisciplinary, and a little bit more complex than just a typical orchestra concert. But
Right.
even those can get challenging because of different needs and different setups. So lots of things to think about with light. Wonderful. Well, anything else you'd like to share about kind of your time so far and thoughts about what's to come this season? Any particular show you're excited about planning?
The concert I'm most excited about is definitely our education concert in November. As a former teacher, of course, the education concert has a special place in my heart. And it's really innovative the way we've partnered with Carnegie Hall to implement this thing called the Link Up program so that the students get to be active participants in the music making process. It's pretty hard to ask an 8-year-old to sit there and just observe something for an hour. So the way that we have programmed the Link Up concert really allows them to be excited and engaged with the material. And make the next generation of musicians. So it's pretty cool.
I love that too. And you've done a great job. We actually are excited to have 2 performances of Link Up this year. If you know a school that serves 3rd to 5th graders that might be interested in attending, we have about 300 seats.
Yeah, just about.
Which is not that many seats. We're already accommodating nearly 3,000 kids.
Yeah.
So don't miss out. It's really special. It's a free opportunity for students. And that hands-on component, there is so much energy in the air that day. It's invigorating and exciting. And it's awesome to see these kids have a good time and that their first classical concert, their first orchestral concert is a really, really positive one. And they come away thinking, oh gosh,
I could do that one day.
I want to do that more, and whether they want to be a musician someday or they just want to be a concert goer and experience live music, we just want to help fuel that fire.
For sure. Yeah.
So, well, thank you, Tucker. Appreciate having you on today and hope that you'll join us for our next Score to Stage sub-series within Mocktails and Masterpieces, where we explore the music library and all the intricacies that come with preparing and presenting the music to the musicians. So take care and we'll see you soon.